have here random words, but as you can see, there are two words that is bigger than the others. So what is it? You are right. If you think about critical literacy, then it is correct. So the topic that we are going to discuss with you is all about critical literacy. If you hear the word critical literacy, what comes in your mind? So let me explain to you. What is critical literacy? Critical literacy is a central thinking skill that a tertiary education seeks to develop in students. It involves the questioning and examination of ideas and requires you to synthesize, analyze, interpret, evaluate, and respond to the text you read or listen to. Well, how do I start this process? Critical literacy starts with reading or listening. For the purposes of critical literacy in academic writing, we are generally talking about your work with reading texts. There are two parts to engaging with academic research or text. First is the reporting, a reporting element where you describe what you are engaging with. And second is the reaction or response element where you then respond to and interpret the text. Let's move on to the critical questions. Critical questions are statements used to obtain specific information. The initiator is often looking for a detailed reply to their guest. They are different from other question types in that they must use a specific question word or interrogative phrase like who, how, what, when, or where. The first thing you need to do is to identify key elements of text as you read. To do that, you need to ask questions and make notes. So we have here two types of critical questions. First is the reporting or describing questions. Here are some examples. Who are the authors or researchers? What they do? What is the main position or argument or themes of the text? How they define the research? Where was it done? With who? What did they find? What do they conclude or recommend? Second is the critical or interpretative questions. Here are some examples of the questions.
Now let's move on to making notes. Note making is not just about writing down everything you hear or read. It is a process of reviewing, connecting, and synthesizing ideas from your lectures or reading. Try to group notes by some sort of organizing principle. This will vary depending on assignment, but it may be to be as determined by the sections of an assignment. Example, section 1 of the paper might be the research that examines causes of something, while section 2 looks at effect, section 3 at the solution, or maybe thematic. So, research is grouped by larger themes. By author, grouping together authors or studies by similarity or difference. By more generic themes, such as major studies or chronology, ordering by time. Tips in making notes. As you read, make reference notes of the sources, at least author names, year, and title of the publication.
So, what your notes should contain. Here are the examples of all good notes should contain. First is the source information. Second is the headings to help you identify the key topics. Third is the key points, examples, names, new ideas. Fourth one is the trigger to make your notes more memorable, such as mnemonics, colors, or drawings. And lastly is the further reading and ideas to follow up later. Well, note making doesn't only happen when you are reading or attending lectures. There are 3 stages to making effective notes: before, during, and after. First is before. Prepare by finding out what you need to know on what the purpose of the reading or lecture. Second, during. Note down main ideas and keywords. Find techniques that work for you. Third is the after. Reflect and review and then organize your notes. Now, let's continue to the critical writing. Critical writing involves analyzing information to understand a problem or topic from more than one perspective, making logical connections between ideas, offering your own perspective on the topic based on your evaluation of the available evidence. Next is the critiquing. Another key element to critical literacy is to form opinion or response to the value of the text or the research. In other words, to evaluate it.
And now, let's move on to the functional language of critique. So when we say functional language of critique, what does it mean? So it is a language that we use to perform various functions such as giving advice or apologizing. Meaning, this is the word or statement that we use to perform different duties like giving advice, apologizing, opinions and observations or response to the value of the text or in your research. Say for example, using the word if I were you or the word my suggestion and another term of please forgive me. So those are the examples of functional language of critique. So here are some examples of the language and phrases that you can use to critique. First is the limitations or the negative critique. So which means telling the main source of the problem or the consequences about your work. It also points the cause of the problem and giving comments that the study fails to consider the importance. So that is the limitations or the negative critique. Second is the strength or the positive critique. So this is opposite to the limitations, which is the negative critique. So at this point, we can see the significant or it is more influential. In short, giving a positive comment about your work or on your performance or about your research. Third is the constructive suggestions. When we say constructive suggestions, it refers to giving comment or approach that is useful and helpful rather than negative and unhelpful. In another term, we are helping them to improve and promoting further development or advancement. So that is the constructive suggestions. And the last is similarity or difference. Who found out by Van 2001 the similarly, which Binet on 2003 also argued that an Evans 2010 supports these ideas, saying that while unlike by Bradley 2001, however by Binet 2003 maintained that it was more about, and lastly the word while by Lee 2004 argued. So that is the about the functional language of critique.
So what is the difference between critical thinking and critical literacy? Critical literacy is the term used to refer a particular aspect of critical thinking. Critical literacy involves looking beyond the literal meaning of a text to determine what is the present and what is missing, in order to analyze and evaluate the text's complete meaning and the author's intent. Why is critical literacy important in the 21st century? In this 21st century, critical literacy skills skill is one of the important abilities of young learners that should be grown since primary school. Through critical literacy, students currently, as a millennial generation, are able to respond intelligently for various kinds of information that develops around them. So what is the main goal of critical literacy? Critical literacy encourages readers to question, explore, or challenge the power relationship that exists between authors and readers. It examines issues of power and promotes reflection, transformative change, and action. How important is critical literacy to you as a student? Being critically literate is important for all ages and is needed for students in this age of technology for them to succeed. Having these skills gives adolescents the ability to look deeper into the meaning of the text and also understand what is right and what is wrong. So, in other words, critical literacy is a learning approach where students are expected to examine various texts to understand the relationship between language and the power it can hold. Students critically analyze and evaluate the meaning of texts as they relate to topics on equity, power, and social justice. That's it for today's lesson. Thank you for watching our video. Reporters, Jessim Layagin, May Ampalayuhan, Rochelle Sibunga, and Shell Tapalis.